This happened just a few weeks ago. I'm Emma, a 32-year-old freelance graphic designer. After a rough breakup, I thought a new place would help me clear my head. I found a quiet suburban home. I set up my workspace. The walls were bare, but I imagined filling them with my art. The first night was peaceful. The quiet surrounded me, and it felt nice. I heard nothing but the wind rustling the leaves outside. But on the second night, I noticed something strange outside my window. A flickering light caught my eye. At first, I thought it was a car passing by. But then it happened again. The light seemed to pulse, and I felt a chill run down my spine. I tried to shake it off, but my heart raced as I stared into the darkness. Over the next few nights, the flickering light returned. It was like it was waiting for me. Sometimes, I thought I heard whispers. Was I just imagining it? It sounded almost like laughter, soft and muffled. My skin crawled as I felt like someone was watching me. Each time I peeked out, I only saw trees moving in the breeze. One night, I got brave and opened the window. The air felt thick, making it hard to breathe. I squinted into the deep shadows of the forest. I saw a figure, but it was always just out of sight. It made me hold my breath. Was it looking at me? As the week wore on, the light came every night. I tried to work on my art, but I couldn't focus. The whispers pulled at my mind. I thought maybe I was imagining things, but something felt off. I felt it deep in my gut, like something wanted me to know. Then the whispers grew louder. Sometimes it felt like they were right behind me. My heart raced every time I turned to look, but nothing was there. Cold sweat dripped down my back as I stared out at the trees. I thought maybe it was just a trick of the light, so I kept watching. But when I saw that shadow move again, I felt frozen in place. On what I thought would be the last night, the figure finally stood still long enough for me to see it. I took a step closer to the window. My breath hitched when I saw its eyes dark and empty. I stumbled backward, almost falling over my own feet. I couldn't believe I had looked so long. That night, I heard a soft voice call my name. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't move. The voice asked, "Why are you still here?" My body felt paralyzed. I turned away. The room felt small and stifling. I thought I was going to leave this place of nightmares, but when I turned back to the window, the figure had vanished. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still being watched. It felt like a part of me was left behind in the darkness, and I wondered if I would ever be free of it. The next day, I tried to shake off the panic from the night before. I thought about going for a walk, maybe exploring the neighborhood. I needed a distraction. So, I grabbed my jacket and walked outside. The sun was shining, and for a moment, I forgot about the shadows. As I strolled down the street, I noticed a few neighbors. They smiled and waved, but I felt a distance. What could I even say? "Hi, I'm Emma. I think something supernatural is haunting my new home." I chuckled at the thought, but my stomach twisted with unease. When I returned home, I felt restless. I sat at my desk, staring blankly at a blank canvas. The colors I usually loved felt muted, and the brushes lay untouched. I decided to take a break and make tea, hoping it would calm my nerves. As I filled the kettle, I heard it again, the whispers. This time they were clearer. "Emma," I nearly dropped the kettle. I steeled myself and turned to face the window. I pressed my forehead against the glass, scanning the yard and the trees beyond. Nothing. Just the rustling leaves, but my heart thudded in my chest. I couldn't convince myself it wasn't real. The voice was as clear as day. That evening, while trying to work, I noticed the flickering light again. It pulsed in the distance, near the edge of the woods. My curiosity battled my fear. I grabbed my jacket, bolstered by a sense that I needed to confront whatever was out there. I stepped outside, the night air cool against my skin. As I neared the tree line, my pulse quickened. The light flickered faster, as if it knew I was coming. I stepped into the shadows, the forest swallowing me whole. The whispered laughter was louder now, echoing between the trees. "Come play with us," it beckoned, sending shivers down my spine. When I finally reached the edge of the woods, I froze. The light illuminated a small clearing. There, I saw it. A circle of what looked like old toys, dolls, stuffed animals, and little trinkets scattered on the ground, the light dancing over them. My stomach dropped. Why were these here? It felt wrong. I took a step back, when I saw it. A child's figure stood in the center of the clearing. The same dark eyes I had seen before, but this time framed by wild, tangled hair. I couldn't tell if it was a boy or a girl. It was just staring at me, unmoving. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Then the whispers changed. "Stay with us, Emma," they called. I turned and ran, branches whipping against my face. Fear coursed through me, and I stumbled out of the trees, gasping for breath. I slammed the door behind me, locking it tight. Inside, I felt safe for a moment. But then everything went dark. The lights flickered and died, plunging me into silence. My heart raced again as I tried to catch my breath. I didn't know what to do. I felt so alone in that darkness, and somehow, I knew I wasn't. Suddenly, a soft tapping came from the window. I glanced over just as I felt that familiar chill creep down my spine. Someone or something was out there, waiting for me again. I stood frozen, staring at the window. The tapping came again, steady, persistent. Each sound echoed like a taunt in the silence. My breath was shallow as I crept toward the glass, feeling both drawn to and repulsed by the unknown. As I reached the window, I hesitated. My pulse hammered in my ears. What could it be? A branch? An animal? A part of me hoped for something mundane. I pulled aside the curtain just enough to peek outside. At first, I saw nothing, just the faint glow of the moonlight reflecting off the grass. But then I noticed it. There, just beyond the edge of the yard, a figure stood. A child, cloaked in shadows, was staring directly at me. I gasped, instinctively pulling back from the window. I wanted to convince myself it wasn't real, but the urgency in my heart disagreed. Curiosity flickered, and I peeked again. The child still stood there, unmoving, with eyes as dark as the forest behind. The moonlight illuminated just enough of the figure to see that it wore a ragged dress, its hair wild and unkempt. A part of me wanted to call out, to ask if it needed help, but the whispers echoed in my mind. "Stay with us, Emma." It felt as if the child had an invisible tether pulling me toward it. I shook my head, trying to clear the thoughts swirling in my mind. I had to get away from the window. But the pull was strong. Just then, the lights flickered back on, illuminating my room in a warm glow. I blinked, momentarily disoriented. The outline of the child at my window wavered, but I forced myself to turn my back on it. I needed to breathe. I needed to think. That I paced around the room, muttering to myself. This can't be real. I must be losing my mind. The whispers were fading, but not completely gone. A soft rustling noise came again, and I felt a prickle of fear at the base of my neck. Against my instincts, I looked back at the window. The child was gone. My heart sank, knotting itself in a maze of confusion and dread. Had I imagined the whole thing? As I turned away again, I noticed a small object on the floor where I hadn't seen it before. It was a doll, faded and worn, its button eyes dull and lifeless. My stomach twisted. I crouched down to touch it, and the moment my fingers made contact, a rush of cold air swept through the room. The whispers returned, stronger now. "You're one of us." Everything around me fell silent, and a wave of understanding washed over me. I scrambled back, knocking the doll away, and it rolled across the floor before coming to a stop against the wall. And that was when the tapping resumed, louder this time, relentless. I bolted to the door, my hands shaking. I had to get out of here. With a final glance at the shadows beyond the window, I fled, desperate to uncover the secret of this haunting presence before it consumed me entirely. The hallway was dark as I sprinted down, the floor creaking beneath my weight. I didn't stop to think about where I was going. I just needed to get away from the room, away from that doll, away from the whispers. I hit the stairs and raced down, gripping the banister to steady myself. My heart pounded against my ribs. I reached the front door, fumbling with the lock as a chill crawled down my spine. Was that tapping still echoing in my mind, or was it real? Just as I finally unlocked the door, a sudden sound froze me in place. It was soft but unmistakable, a giggle. The sound sent a jolt of ice through my body. Who was in the house? I sat there, breath caught in my throat, and listened. Emma. The voice was tender, like an old friend's whisper, but it dripped with something else, an edge of darkness that sent me reeling back. My instincts kicked in. I turned and hurried toward the living room, where I thought I could find something to defend myself if necessary. I grabbed a heavy candle holder off the mantel and gripped it tightly, the cold metal grounding me in the moment. With each step, the giggling echoed again, this time louder, more insistent. It wasn't just the child's voice anymore, there were more, blending together in an unsettling harmony that made my skin crawl. I could hear them all around me, like a gathering of shadows tracing my every move. Join us. Their voices called, a cacophony of laughter that spread across the room. I backed away toward the window, searching for an escape. What lay outside was uncertain, but the voices kept pulling me, urging me to step forward. My heart raced even faster. Maybe I'd be safer out there. Just then, I caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye. A shadow moved across the wall, darting quickly, almost inconspicuous. I turned my head sharply. There, darting behind the curtain, was a flash of a small figure too quick for me to see clearly. "Come play." It whispered. In that moment, the candle holder slipped from my grip and clattered to the floor. The sound seemed to echo in the stillness, and the whispering stopped. I felt exposed and vulnerable, and now I was stuck between the ghosts of my fears and the reality unfolding in front of me. I couldn't just stay here. I had to know what they wanted. "Who are you?" I called into the trembling silence. "What do you want from me?" No answer came, but a gentle breeze swept through the room, carrying with it a familiar scent, freshly cut grass, mingling with the musty odor of old wood. It was all wrong. The air began to grow thick, almost suffocating, and I could feel the weight of their gaze resting on me, and then I saw it. The door to the backyard stood ajar, inviting, as if someone were beckoning me to step through. My heart raced wildly. I couldn't ignore it, I had to know what was drawing me back outside. Before I could think it over, I rushed toward the door, pushed it open, and stepped out into the darkness. The backyard stretched before me, cloaked in shadows, and there, just beneath the trees, I saw them, figures gathering, all whispering, waiting for me. That's when I realized the gravity of my choice. I didn't just step outside, I had crossed over into a world I might never escape. The chill night air hit me as I stepped into the backyard, the whispers growing louder, more enticing. I hesitated at first, feeling the weight of the darkness around me. The figures were still there, a collection of indistinct shapes shifting beneath the trees, their faces hidden, always out of reach. "Come play, Emma." One of them called again, the giggle now layered with an eerie urgency. The ground was damp beneath my bare feet, each step pulling me closer to that gathering. A part of me screamed to run back inside, slam the door, and forget I ever heard voices. But another part was drawn in, curiosity mingling with dread. I had to know who or what they were. As I crept closer, the whispering turned into words, clearer now, cascading over me like a waterfall of sound. "We've been waiting for you." They sounded almost frustrated, like I had kept them from something important. The moonlight broke through the clouds, bathing the yard in a pale glow. In that light, I saw more details, disheveled hair, clothes that looked old like something out of a storybook. They were children. "Who are you?" I asked again, suddenly feeling small and vulnerable. They fell silent, and in that moment, I noticed something that twisted my stomach into knots. One of the children, a girl with dark hair and a tattered dress, stared back at me with wide, unblinking eyes. They weren't just staring for effect, they were searching. "Join us," she repeated softly, this time with a gravity that weighed heavily in the silence. There was need in her voice, a hunger I couldn't grasp. What did they want? What did joining mean? Suddenly, a crash came from inside the house. The loud noise shattered the stillness around us, and in an instant, the gathered figures shifted, eyes darting nervously. I glanced over my shoulder, torn between the safety of the house and the otherworldly pull of the children. "Stay!" one of them shouted. I took a frantic step back, my heart racing. What if the house wasn't safe either? The whispers grew frantic, rising to a crescendo, drowning out my thoughts. "You have to help us, Emma." A new wave of panic surged through me. I squinted into the darkness, searching for signs of danger or an escape. As I turned back to the kids, something cold brushed against my leg, icy fingers, wrapping around my ankle like a vice. I gasped, looking down as the ground beneath me rippled. What is this?" I stammered, trying to free myself from the grip tightening around my foot. It felt like roots entangling me, pulling me down into the earth. "Help us!" The girl's voice echoed above the chaos, her sunken eyes pleading. At that moment, my fear snapped into survival mode. I raised my foot, kicking wildly as I let out a scream that shattered the night. But the shadows only laughed softly, their amusement piercing through my panic, and then everything went dark. The ground beneath me gave way, and just like that, I was gone, a part of a world I still didn't understand, swallowed whole by the shadows that had waited so long for my arrival. I don't know how long I floated in that darkness. Time lost all meaning. There was no up or down, no sense of direction. I felt like I was suspended in a dream that's too far gone to wake from. Then, as suddenly as it had gone dark, I was pulled back into a new reality. I landed softly on the ground, surrounded by a dim, flickering light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with my heart. I squinted, trying to make sense of my surroundings. I was in a forest, but not one I recognized. The trunks of the trees twisted and gnarled into shapes that were almost human, their bark warped like faces contorted in silent screams. The air was thick, tinged with the scent of moss and decay. "Emma!" A voice broke through my confusion, sharp and frantic. It was the girl from the yard. "We thought you were lost." "Lost?" I echoed, brushing dirt from my arms. "What is this place? What do you want from me?" Her expression darkened, and the other children crowded closer, their eyes wide and unblinking. "You have to choose," she said. Her voice trembled, laced with urgency. "You're here to help us find our way home." Before I could respond, the shadows shifted around us, forming dark outlines that stretched across the ground. I could feel something watching. "What do you mean?" I couldn't keep the tremor out of my voice. "Every year, more of us come here, and some never return." The boy next to her spoke up. His voice was cracked, like he hadn't used it in ages. "We need you to help us move on, but it's dangerous." "Dangerous?" I asked, trying to ground myself. "But how?" "You'll know when the time comes," the girl assured me, her eyes searching mine as if I held the answers they needed. "You just need to trust us." A chill crept over me as I noticed the shadows in the trees were growing larger. They moved like hungry tendrils, reaching toward us. I stepped back instinctively. My heart raced again as uncertainty gripped me, and then I remembered the crashing sound from the house. "Where are my parents? Are they safe?" A cold smile crossed the girl's lips, but it didn't reach her eyes. "They can't see you here." Not unless you bring them with you. But if they come, it will change everything. Fear washed over me. Change what? She opened her mouth, ready to answer, but before she could speak, the ground trembled beneath us. The shadows lurched forward, and I realized they were closing in, trying to swallow us whole. Run! I shouted, adrenaline surging through me as I turned to flee. But my feet were heavy, almost glued to the ground. That's when I felt it again, something cold and creeping climbing my legs, pulling me down toward blackness. I fought against it, but it was relentless. And all the while, the children watched, their faces a mix of hope and despair. Help us! They begged, their voices rising in a chorus of fear. And in that chaos, I felt the truth press down on me. This was only just the beginning. I felt the ground rip beneath me, a chasm opening wide. I stumbled, trying to escape the dark pull at my feet, but it was too strong. Panic clawed at my throat. The children shouted, but their voices faded into the chaotic sound of the earth cracking. I caught a glimpse of their faces, raw with desperation. Suddenly, a flicker of bravery rushed through me. I willed my body to move. I pushed against the cold grip coiling around my ankles and shot forward, stumbling into the thick underbrush. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't dare look back. The flickering light and the cries of the children faded into the shadows as I ran deeper into the forest. Branches whipped at my face, cutting me. The trees loomed like giants, towering and oppressive. Each step felt like a warning, each breath was a curse. Then I saw it, a path, narrow and winding, lit by an eerie glow. It beckoned me, but caution gripped my heart. I hesitated at the edge, gasping for breath. The sounds of the shadows seemed to gather behind me, swirling, hungry. With one last glance over my shoulder, I stepped onto the path. The air shifted. The glow became brighter, illuminating symbols carved into the ground, pulsating with energy. They glimmered like whispers, urging me forward. I could feel something there, a presence. My fingers brushed the symbols, and a jolt spread through me. Emma! A voice called out, distant yet familiar. I turned sharply, recognizing the voice of my brother. Emma, help! His tone was terrified. My heart raced. The shadows surged behind me, thrumming with a dark energy. No! I screamed, leaping back onto the path, ready to run toward my brother's voice. I'm coming, hold on. But as I moved further along the path, the glow around me began to flicker like a dying candle. I fought to keep my focus, knowing the voices were moving beyond reach. Please! I cried out. Where are you? As I reached an opening in the trees, I froze. In front of me stood a clearing, and in the center was an old stone well, water swirling violently at the bottom. A sense of dread filled my chest. The symbols below were glowing brighter, pulsing in sync with the water's rhythm. Is that you? I whispered, leaning closer. My breath fogged up the air. Shadows danced along the edges of the clearing, whispering my name in twisted echoes. I took a step back. What do you want from me? But answers remained hidden. The shadows seemed to thicken around me, trapping me in this moment. My instincts screamed for me to leave, but I felt a force anchoring me to the well. Then a shadowed figure emerged from the darkness, its form flickering in and out like a glitch in reality. I gasped. Who are you? A low voice bubbled up, echoing through the clearing. You have the power to help them, or you can choose to save yourself. My heart raced as the reality of the choice dawned on me. The whispers, the shadows, my brother, they all hung in the balance. I stood, torn between the two paths laid before me. I knew I had to make a decision. But as I opened my mouth to respond, everything went dark. I blinked, disoriented. The darkness was thick, wrapping around me like a heavy blanket. For a moment, I thought I might have passed out, the fear still pulsing in my chest. Then, just as suddenly, the shadows peeled back, revealing the stone well once more. But something was different. The eerie glow pulsed in a chaotic rhythm, and the shadows felt alive, swirling with more intensity than before. I stood there, heart hammering, trying to gather my thoughts. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. "Is anyone there?" Silence responded, pressing in on me, almost suffocating. I took a step back, evaluating the well. Its surface shimmered, drawing my gaze. I had to resist. The water moved restlessly and an image flickered across its depths, faces contorted in terror, reaching out as if begging for help. I staggered back, gripping onto a nearby tree for balance. "No. This isn't right." My hands trembled as I fought to steady my breath. The whispers escalated, growing louder and more frantic, merging into a cacophony that made my head spin, then a piercing scream erupted from the depths of the well. I flinched, a chill washing over me. "Emma! Help me!" It was my brother. The sound clawed at my heart, raw with desperation. I felt a surge of dread wash over me, sharp and undeniable. "Stop it!" I shouted, my voice breaking, desperate to block out the torment. "Leave him alone." Suddenly, the ground trembled again, this time in a rhythmic pattern that matched the pulse of the well. I felt it in my bones, a warning of something wicked approaching. The shadows danced quicker now, and I could sense them drawing closer, hungry for my fear. "Choose." The voice emerged from the darkness again, deeper and more commanding. "Help him or claim your own freedom." Panic clawed at my throat. I had never felt so trapped. I peered down into the swirling water, resisting the temptation to lean closer. What if I fell in? I could imagine the dark waters closing over me, dragging me into whatever nightmare lay beneath the surface. I turned away, wanting to flee, but my legs felt rooted to the ground. My brother's screams echoed in my mind. "That's your blood in the water. You can save him." The shadow figure hissed, urgency threading through its tone. Before I could think, I blurted out, "How?" The shadows erupted from all sides, enveloping me like a storm. "You must offer something valuable." A deep, unsettling fear coursed through me. What did they want? What could I give? I realized then that they were not just shadows, they were a living part of this place, yearning to feed. "No!" I yelled, shaking my head. "I won't give you anything." Suddenly, a vision flashed before me, a glimpse of my brother's face, fear mingled with hope, pleading for salvation. I swallowed hard, torn between the overwhelming instinct to run and the desperate need to save him. The shadows responded, swirling closer in anticipation. The ground continued to shake. I felt an incredible weight pressing down on me. "Make your choice, Emma." The figure demanded, and in that moment, I saw a chance, a flicker of a plan. It was framed in desperation, but it was all I had. My heart raced. I would have to act quickly. I would have to confront whatever horror awaited me. But just as adrenaline surged through my veins, the ground beneath me cracked open once more with a deafening roar. And I fell. I hit the ground hard, the impact knocking the air out of my lungs. My mind spun as I struggled to comprehend what just happened. I lay there for a moment, gasping, trying to collect myself in the darkness. The echoes of my brother's screams faded, but the weight of his fear lingered on my skin. Slowly, I pushed myself up, wincing at the pain radiating through my back. I was in a narrow tunnel. The walls were damp, the air thick with mustiness. I could see an eerie glow ahead, pulsing faintly, beckoning me like a lighthouse in a storm. "What is this place?" I murmured, half to myself, half hoping for a response. But silence answered again, wrapping around me like a shroud that I moved towards the light, my breaths shallow. The ground was uneven, littered with debris that crunched beneath my feet. The shadows from the well lingered in my mind, clinging to me like a curse. I felt their hunger, their urgency to claim me. As I advanced, I noticed markings carved into the walls. Symbols that twisted and turned, shifting shapes every time I blinked. I reached out to touch one, feeling a chill race up my arm as my fingers grazed the stone. An immediate vision flooded my mind, flashes of my brother trapped in darkness, surrounded by those same faces I had seen in the well. No, I gasped, stumbling back. I had to find him. That thought ignited a fire in my chest. I couldn't let him down. Not now. Just as I regained my footing, I heard soft whispers, echoing from deep within the tunnel. They called my name, dissonance morphing into a melodious chant. I squinted into the glow ahead, where the whispers seemed to gather. Emma. They sang sweetly, yet their tone chilled my blood. I edged closer, every instinct screaming for me to turn back. What if it was a trap? I hesitated, but then another scream shattered the night. This one was unmistakably my brother's. Emma. Please. Help me. The urgency in his voice electrified my nerves. Without a second thought, I sprinted forward, guided by his cries, driven by a desperate hope. The tunnel opened into a larger cavern. The light grew brighter, pouring down from an unseen source above. I shielded my eyes and squinted into the brightness. And that's when I saw it, a stone pedestal in the center, shimmering with an unnatural glow. An orb rested atop it, pulsating rhythmically. But surrounding the orb were the very same faces I had seen in the well. Their features twisted in agony, mouths moving silently as if caught in some eternal torment. What do you want? I breathed, dread pooling in my stomach. Suddenly, I heard a voice, familiar, warm, and filled with fear. Emma. You have to break the bond. I'll save you, I promise. I shouted back, but the moment the words left my lips, the faces turned toward me, their eyes ablaze with fury. The whispers crescendoed, rising to a deafening roar. The shadows were in full force now, and I knew I was running out of time. I had to act or risk losing my brother forever. As I approached the pedestal, I sensed the shadows closing in around me like a storm. Then everything went dark. I woke up gasping, my heart racing as I sprawled across the floor of my living room, the flickering lights overhead illuminating my surroundings. The shadows had receded, but the oppressive air around me remained, laden with an unsettling silence. I glanced out the window, half expecting to see the child standing there, her empty eyes watching me. But nothing lingered in the darkness except the faint rustle of the wind outside. Then I heard it, a soft, familiar voice calling my name. Emma. My brother's tone was anxious, echoing somewhere deep within me. The sound sliced through the thick tension like a knife. But it was distant, fading in and out, pulling me toward something I couldn't fully grasp. I stood up shakily and stumbled to my feet, the vivid imagery of what I had just gone through pressing heavily on my mind. Had I truly been in that place, or had it been a figment of my imagination? My mind was swirling with doubt, yet my instincts screamed that both possibilities carried a weight I couldn't ignore. Time passed as I paced the room, replaying fragments in my head, the whispers of the shadows, the tormented faces at the well, and most importantly, my brother's cries. Each echo poured a dark ink into my chest, tightening my chest in panic. A part of me wanted resolute closure, an assurance that he was safe, that I had bravely escaped the clutches of that dark world. But the truth loomed like an incoming storm. The more I thought, the less certain I became. Without thinking, I rushed to the window and pulled it open, the wind rushing in a mix of damp earth and night. The moon hung low, glossy and watching, as if it understood everything unsaid. I strained to see if the child was lurking outside, but I found only the inky blackness of the trees. Please, I whispered into the void, if you're there, let me help. In that moment, the night felt alive, the branches brushing against each other like whispered secrets. I could have sworn I saw figures shifting in the depths of the forest, a fleeting flicker just for an instant, but when I blinked, it was all gone. A neglectful chill swept through me, and every ounce of comfort evaporated. Had I really escaped? Or was I just a pawn in their game, tethered to their whispers no matter how far I ran? Suddenly, the phone rang, jolting me from my thoughts. I hesitated, fear tinged with hope. Tentatively, I reached for the receiver, my hands trembling before I answered. "Hello? Emma?" It was my mother, her voice frantic. Relief washed over me at first, but it was quickly overshadowed by dread. "Your brother, he went missing. I thought he was with you." I released my breath in shock, everything coiling tight in my stomach. "What do you mean missing? I thought he was supposed to be home hours ago. I haven't seen him since he went out into the woods." Her panic was palpable, echoing in my mind, tightly weaving with past hours' dread. In that moment, I realized the truth chilling my veins. The shadows weren't just a phenomenon, they were waiting, hungry, entwined in the threads of my family, drawing me back towards the very darkness I fought to escape. "Mom, I'm coming!" I yelled fiercely, grabbing my jacket and stuffing my phone in my pocket. I stepped out of my front door and into the night, uncertainty curling in my throat. Darkness would unearth unspoken truths and unknown fears, while my brother's laughter was replaced by whispers wrapping around me. The outline of trees loomed ahead, shadows pooling around their roots. As I entered the woods, I couldn't shake the feeling of being observed. The laughter that once echoed sweetly now danced mockingly just beyond the trees. "Join us," it seemed to beckon with every shiver of the branches, and as I headed deeper into the woods, one resolute thought remained. I would face whatever terrors lay ahead to save my brother. But as I moved further away from the safety of my home and deeper into the unknown, questions lingered in my mind, floating like shadows, a reminder that not everything finds solace in the light, and no haunting truly finds closure without consequences. A shared history bonded us with an eternity of unanswered questions. Whatever awaited me at the depths of that woods held darkness beyond imagination. I could only hope that, when I finally found him, we wouldn't be the next faces captured in the whispers of the shadows.